Welcome to the Autism Mom Coach podcast. I am your host, Lisa Candera. I am a lawyer, a life coach, and most importantly, I am the full-time single mother of a teenager with autism. In this podcast, I am going to share with you the tools and strategies you need so you can fight like hell for your child without burning out. Let's get to it. You are listening to episode 190 of the Autism Mom Coach. What the teen years have taught me so far. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Since this is the first full solo podcast of 2026, I wanted to share with you what's been going on, what I've been thinking about, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. So, just to backtrack a little bit, last year, my son turned 18. This was right at the end of last year. In September, he turned 18. So still a teen, but on the adult side of that equation, right? And so with that, there have been a lot of transitions that are happening that we're working on what the future or the immediate future is going to look like. And in doing that, we're having, and when I say we, me and his team, we're having a lot of conversations about the past, what worked, what didn't work, and what we've learned from essentially 4 full years of acuity. Okay. So long story short, to catch you up if you don't know our story, is when my son turned 13, we pretty much went into a free fall. Okay. Up to that point, he was attending 6th grade with the general education class. He had a couple of pullouts for speech and reading. But other than that, he was just like grooving with the general ed class. He was going to parties. He was doing after school ski. He just was loving the experience. Still though, with 7th grade and middle school approaching, his anxiety had a bit of an uptick. And that uptick really exploded with the COVID shutdown, which happened midway through his 6th grade year when he was 12, turning 13. So in those several months following the shutdown and schools being closed, he really took a nosedive. His anxiety skyrocketed. His OCD made a grand crashing appearance, and then teenage hormones. All of this really led to just him going from well-functioning to hardly functioning. And then that deteriorated even more when we hit the beginning of the 7th grade year, when he was expected to go to middle school. So he was anticipating, as all the kids were, a transition from 6th grade where they slow step you into middle school, right? You have the visits to the school, the conversations with the teachers, you get to see your locker room. Well, none of that happened. And so my son's anxiety, again, was through the roof. And in a really short period of time, I think we were there less than 2 weeks, we had our first 911 call and ER visits back to back. And so from there, we really just started almost like a snowball effect of 911 calls, ER visits, inpatient hospitalizations, new doctors, partial hospitalizations in several states, new diagnoses, so many out-of-district placements and IEP meetings, and more medication changes than I can even count. And so now being on I don't even want to say the other side of that, but being 5 years out and having some perspective of living in a pretty acute situation for a few years. And I will just say that it got so bad and so dark that I really thought that we had come to the point where I had lost my child. I thought that maybe there was some sort of break, between the hormonal shifts and the anxiety and the PTSD and all that he was feeling. Like maybe there's been a shift and there's no coming back. Like I just didn't know. And it was really terrifying. But now to be in a much better place, I can look back at all of this, and what I'm thinking about is all that I have learned. And I've learned so much, like operationally, right? Like nitty gritty kinds of tips that I would give to other moms and things that I would never have known had we not gone through these situations. But on a more macro level, there are three principles that have really guided me through the really hard times. And I am going to be very intentional about bringing those forward into this next chapter of adulthood. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. I know that was a really long lead up, but there was a reason behind it. The first principle, value, guiding light for me has been acceptance. Now, to back that up, for a long time, I thought I really did understand what acceptance was and that I had done it. Like it was something on the list that you check off and check, all done. I used to look at it as something that you did once and that you moved on. And in my view, having purposefully worked hard to get my son the autism diagnosis, I embraced it. Yes, he has autism. I was looking for this diagnosis. Now that I know that he has autism, we are going to get an IEP, right? In that IEP, we are going to get accommodations related to his autism diagnosis. I told everybody who needed to know. I didn't hide it from anyone. I embraced it. I went to the support groups. I did the walks. To me, acceptance had been accomplished. Now, fast forward into these teenage years, I have been living solo with my son. I'm a single parent for a lot of years, and we had gotten into a groove, I will say, with his autism. And I want to be really careful about how I explain this because I one time explained it to someone and they viewed it as I had given up. And that is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that I had risen up to the autism and to the level of performance, the level of attention, the level of precision that was involved in everything that we did. It was baked into me. Now, remember, Ben is my only child. And so I knew nothing different. I mean, I knew our situation was different from other people, but I had only experienced this. And so again, everything that we did that was extra was just part of what was normal to me. I say this all because it was still a lot, but it was like what I had gotten used to, right? I had risen to the level to be able to handle it. There was still tons of struggles, tons of challenges, and a lot of anxiety. But for the most part, I felt like I had it in hand. And that changed dramatically when anxiety, OCD, and teenage hormones came to the party. It was a whole new world. And I was not happy about it. I was like, okay, autism is enough. And I know that part of autism are some OCD tendencies and for sure anxiety. But for you to just start coming to the head of the class, right? And just start driving the bus, mixing metaphors here, I was not happy about that. I was resistant to it. This was not okay to me. I had a lot of resentment and resistance that I had now these extra things that were making everything so much harder. And then you add to that the teenage hormones. And it is like throwing a match on a can of gasoline, and it exploded. And with that came aggression. And I for sure was not okay with this. I was resisting that a lot. And so all of this resistance really created a lot of friction for me in handling what was happening with my son. And I think that this resistance, this friction was, some grief, some denial, some anger, all of that mixed in. But the overall tone was that I wasn't having it. I just was mad that it was happening. And then when the aggression started, I really lost it. Like in terms of my understanding of who my child was, him acting the way that he was really foreign to me. And at the same time, we had transitioned to an entirely new team at this middle school who had not seen the Ben who was thriving in elementary school. And they're seeing him in this way of having so much anxiety, so much OCD. And I'm at these meetings saying, but you don't understand. Just a few months ago, this is what he was like. And I think about what it must have been like to be in those meetings for the other people, probably thinking, oh, this mom is in denial. And I was. I didn't know it was denial because for me, I was seriously confused. I did not understand how my kid, who really was or looked to be thriving, could deteriorate so rapidly. And this really kept me stuck. And in addition, this resistance, it interrupted or interfered, better to say, with my ability to make the best decisions for my child. Because I was not accepting the reality of what was really happening at the moment, I was making decisions for him based on where I thought he should be, where he had been, but he wasn't there now. And a really good example of this happened following his first inpatient hospitalization. His school had agreed to place him in an out of school placement. So this is an out of district placement. And when this happens, they give you a couple of options that are in your general area, and you have to do your due diligence. You have to apply and get your child in. But in that evaluation, it was really clear that one of these schools was for kids with aggression, with like a high level of aggression. And that was a no for me. I was like, no, like he doesn't belong in this school. And at the time, his team agreed because he hadn't really been, I guess, aggressive, very aggressive, or aggressive towards others at that point. It had been a lot of self-injurious behavior and more like threats of aggression towards me. So I did not see him as fitting in that school. And I had the fear that if I sent him to a school with kids who were aggressive, that he would just become more aggressive. So I pushed and I was successful in getting him into the school that, in my view, reflected the most where I saw him and where I wanted to see him. And he got in, they accepted him, and it didn't work. And it didn't work immediately. He had a really hard time. He was having a lot of aggressive behaviors. He clearly was not suited for that environment at that time. And I had a lot of grief about this. And I remember saying to my good friend, who's also a BCBA, he doesn't belong at the school with the kids who are really aggressive. And she was like, well, he doesn't belong at this school either because he's the one being aggressive. It reminded me of that scene in Breaking Bad where the wife is saying to Walter White, the husband, that she's essentially afraid of the bad guys coming to their door, knocking on their door. And at this point, she doesn't understand that he's actually like the kingpin of the organization. And his response to her was, I'm the one who knocks. And for whatever reason, that was the metaphor that I had in my brain, realizing my kid is the kid with the behaviors. And that was a hard pill to swallow, but he was. And once I did, I was able to make better and clearer decisions. It did not make the grief easier, but it made me a better advocate and decision maker for my child. It made me a better team member because I wasn't the mom that you needed to handle with kid gloves. I wanted it honest and to the point. And that's what I got. Now, does that mean I agreed with everything that I was told? Not necessarily, but I was able to take in the information and assess it at that point because of that deeper level of acceptance. And to me, what that acceptance is, it looks like, instead of what I was doing, which was not this, or what now, or oh, it's always something. It was more like, and now this, and this too. That is what me acceptance of Ben's autism looked like. It looked like accepting the presentation of his autism and all of those comorbidities that joined the party in the way that they are in the moment that they are, so that I can be the best decision maker for him in those moments. All right. So now let's move on to the second thing, and that is unconditional love, which means that you love someone no matter what, which does not seem like a big ask when the person is your child, right? Like you wouldn't even think twice about it. Of course. Well, I'll tell you what, when your child looks like someone you don't recognize anymore, and you go from being their best buddy to the person who triggers them the most and the target of whatever they got to bring, it really does put that to the test. I never wondered whether or not I loved my son or not, ever. But there were a lot of dark moments in those few years. And like I said, I thought I had lost him. I thought that we would never be who we were before, that he would never be who he was. That was in the past. And the question that I asked myself at that point was, can I love him no matter what? Even if I don't like him, even if he doesn't like me, even if I don't recognize him? And the answer was yes, like a full throated, feel it in my heart, yes. And to me, that was so empowering because I wasn't waiting to see what he would do or how he would turn out, right? So to speak. I was deciding ahead of time, and I knew it in my body. I can love this child. I will love this child no matter what. And in that loving him no matter what, I was going to make the best decisions I could based on the information I had available and the resources at the time, even if he was not a fan, let's just say. And so that, again, it was empowering, but it was also freeing. And for whatever reason, it gave me this North Star, this sort of strength that I just knew that no matter what, I'm going to love him. And no matter what, that was all I'm really here to do for him. Yes, I am going to, and I have supported him in tons and tons of different ways. But when it comes down to it, our job is to love our kids, right? And that love sometimes doesn't always look the way they would like it to look, right? It comes with boundaries, it comes with limits, it comes with hard conversations. But knowing that I could and I would love him no matter what just felt great. It felt really empowering in a time where things did not feel great and things did not look great either. And third, and finally, holding hope. And this one really, it's like we've come full circle. These principles, values, all tied together. Holding hope means, to me, accepting what is right now, not fighting with reality, and holding hope for my son to live a good life, a happy life, a life with joy, whatever that looks like and means for him, even if it doesn't look the way I would like it to, or I wish that it would look. Holding hope means seeing your child disintegrating, being aggressive towards you, and holding hope that he's going to come back. This is going to get better. There will be light at the end of this tunnel. And this principle was really important for me in the last few years because we came up against so many dead ends. We did all of the different things we were told to do. We jumped through all of the hoops. We went to all of the treatments. I moved to another state and lived in a hotel for 3 months to get Ben that specialized OCD treatment. We tried different programs, different doctors, different medications, and they weren't helping. The things that we hoped would help, that had helped other people, they weren't helping. And holding hope, doing that in the face of, I would say, failure after failure, was effort, right? It didn't come naturally. Holding hope is not about denial. Again, to me, it's about radical acceptance and holding your heart open for the best. Hope for improvement, hope for joy, hope that he could find his way back from being trapped inside that anxiety and OCD. And I talk to parents every day, and I know that this is a difficult thing to do. I have had the experience, and I have clients who are afraid to feel that hope. They're afraid to get their hopes up. And what I was really afraid of in those moments is of being disappointed and of being heartbroken. And so holding hope is an act of courage because you are putting your heart on the line. I think that's what being a parent is. Being an autism parent is that we hold hope for our children, that we put our bodies on the line, we put our feelings on the line, we put our emotions on the line, but we do it for our children because we know them. We know them outside of the behaviors and outside of what it looks like to other people, and we hold hope for them. And so me being able to do that again was really empowering, and it was a challenge. And then I want to give you like a really specific example of this. So a couple of years ago, when my son was, I would say, at the height of his acuity, one of the case managers that we were working with and was trying to figure out next steps and placements for my son, while we were in a conversation, I could think with a larger group, she said something to the effect of, "But for a miracle, this child will always be ... I don't even want to say it right now because, but she wasn't wrong. And I wasn't mad at her. She was not underestimating my child. She was not being rude or dismissive. She loves my child. She has been an amazing person on my child's team. But in that moment, she was spitting facts. And I knew that at that moment, she was right. And I just remember consciously deciding, I believe in miracles. I can believe in miracles. I will believe in this miracle for my son. I don't know how. I don't know when. There is no evidence of it. But I will believe in that miracle for him. And I'm going to share a little bit more with you just to tell you how corny I got on this when she said, "But for a miracle." And I thought, well, I believe in miracles. This song from Hot Chocolate came to my mind. I think it's from like the Full Monty. I think it's called "You Sexy Thing." That is the name. That is the name of the song, "You Sexy Thing." And I downloaded it and I would listen to it because it had that line, "I believe in miracles." And I did. I do. And now my son has come back to who he is and even better. And I know that there are challenges ahead, but I also know what it feels like to be at rock bottom for there still to be light. And so when you take that all together, the acceptance of right now, the unconditional love for your child, and your ability in your parent heart to hold hope for their best outcome, whatever that is for them. These are the things that I think that we all do and that make us extraordinary parents, parents who get knocked down all of the time, but get up again. Again, I think I'm quoting a song. Don't mean to do that, but I just want you to think about these things when you're in those dark moments. I mean, you could think about them anytime, but when you're in those dark moments, just recognize what you are doing for your child in those moments, that you are loving them unconditionally, right? You accept them for who they are, and all of the work that you do to support them, it's giving them that hope, right? You are the foundation for everything for your kiddo. And so, all right, that is all I have to say about that. But just know that no matter where you are in this journey, even if your experience looks nothing like mine, and it probably won't. I mean, not everyone goes through this level of acuity. And I don't share this because I don't want to scare people about, especially the teenage years, because everyone's journey is very different. There's nothing I could have done to prepare me for it. And there's nothing that you can do to prepare yourself for whatever is you come up in your journey. And the same thing for me as my son goes into adulthood. But holding on to these principles, I think for me have been and will be a real source of strength and growth. But no matter what, this experience as autism parents really does push you to your edge. And I know that there is real growth in that, but let's be real, it's also really hard and it's lonely when you're in it. And so you don't need to be at rock bottom or in a crisis or barely holding it together to reach out for support. This is why I do what I do. I created my one-on-one coaching program to be the resource I wish I had had during these time periods. And so whether you are in crisis or you're just struggling, you deserve support. And if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, schedule your one-on-one consultation call with me. This is a conversation. I want to hear where you are, what you're struggling with, what your goals are, and we'll discuss whether or not working with me is your next right step. To schedule your call, go to the link in the show notes, or you can email me directly at lisa@theautismmomcoach.com. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Autism Mom Coach. If you are ready to apply the principles you are learning in these episodes to your life, it is time to schedule a consultation call with me. Podcasts are great, but the ahas are fleeting. Real change comes from application and implementation, and this is exactly what we do in my one-on-one coaching program. To schedule your consultation, go to my website, theautismmomcoach.com, work with me, and take the first step to taking better care of yourself so that you can show up as the parent you want to be for your child with autism.